The sun was already scorching by mid-morning, but Naomi barely noticed as she stood outside the hospital gates, gripping her phone like a lifeline. Her fingers trembled, not just from fatigue, but from fear, the kind that crawled under your skin and whispered that everything could fall apart in a second. Her best friend, Ada, lay unconscious in the ICU. They had grown up like sisters in the same orphanage, looked out for each other through school, exams, heartbreaks, and the crushing realities of poverty. Now, Ada was fighting for her life, and Naomi was fighting to keep her alive. She stared at her phone, refreshing her bank app for the 100th time. Still no alert. Her heart sank. The nurse had said the bill had to be settled by noon, or Ada would be moved to the general ward, no equipment, no close monitoring. And Naomi knew that could mean death. She dialed again. This time, the call went through. Charles, please, any update? Naomi, I swear, I'm doing everything I can. Things are tight here. I might be able to send you like $100. 200 max. I'm sorry. She closed her eyes tightly. Even that will help. Just, please hurry. As the call ended, Naomi sat on the concrete step, letting the tears she had been holding back fall freely. She had sold her laptop, her phone was borrowed, and she had even begged strangers in the hospital parking lot for help. Pride was no longer a luxury. Minutes later, a soft ding came from her phone. She looked down. Incoming transfer, $5,000. From Coca Intl. Her breath caught. What? She blinked. Refreshed the page. Still there. She checked the sender again. Coca Intl. That wasn't Charles, but the amount. Who else could have sent this? Her heart thudded wildly. Maybe Charles had a rich friend. Maybe he used someone else's account. Or maybe God made a way. She jumped to her feet and ran inside the hospital. The nurses stared in surprise as she pulled out the receipt and slammed the cash at the counter. Pay everything. All of it. I don't want her moved. I want her treated. For the first time in days, her voice carried strength. 3 hours later, Ada was stable. Naomi sat beside her hospital bed, brushing hair from her friend's damp forehead, whispering quiet prayers. But as the evening set in, and the shadows crept over the ward, Naomi's phone buzzed again. An unknown number. She picked up. Is this Miss Naomi Johnson? Yes. This is Coca Industries. We believe a sum of $5,000 was mistakenly transferred to your account this morning. We would like to confirm your identity and arrange a refund immediately. Naomi froze. Her world tilted. Her mouth went dry. I used the money already. There was a pause on the other end. Expect a visit. The line went dead. The knock on the door came just after 7 a.m. Naomi, still in her wrapper and faded t-shirt, didn't expect visitors, especially not on a Monday. She moved quietly through the small apartment, careful not to wake Ada, who was still resting from her recent hospital discharge. Another knock. This time louder. Sharper. She opened the door. And froze. A sleek black car was parked by the dusty roadside. Standing in front of her was a tall man in a perfectly tailored navy suit. His presence filled the doorway even before he spoke. Sharp jawline. Clean haircut. A pair of diamond studs in each ear caught the morning light. Naomi Johnson. Her mouth was dry. Why yes. He took off his sunglasses, revealing piercing, unreadable eyes. I'm Alexander Coca. Her heart dropped to her stomach. Coca. Coca Industries. This was the man from the call. The man whose $5,000 she'd used thinking it was help from her friend. I believe you received something that belongs to me. Her knees nearly gave way. Please, It was a mistake. I didn't know. I don't care what you thought, he snapped. The money came from a corporate account. Do you know what that means for my audits? Naomi stepped back, letting him in. Her small apartment suddenly felt too tight for the weight of his anger. I didn't spend it on myself, she said quickly. My friend, she was sick. I begged someone in London to send help. When the money came, I thought, her voice cracked, I thought God finally answered. Alexander crossed his arms, unmoved. You owe me $5,000. Naomi bit her lower lip. I don't have it. I just finished university. I haven't even started working. I'm supposed to start an internship next week. He tilted his head. So, you're broke, jobless, and indebted to me. She blinked back tears. I can work. I can pay you back slowly. Please don't press charges. He looked around. The peeling paint. The frayed couch. The quiet desperation in her voice. Work, he repeated, thinking aloud. I just fired my maid 2 days ago. And my fiancé made sure no agency wants to work in my house. Naomi stayed quiet, confused. He turned to her with a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. You want to pay me back? Fine. Be my maid. For 1 year. Then we'll call it even. Naomi stood stunned in her living room, looking at the man who just flipped her life upside down. From internship dreams, to working as a maid for a billionaire. And worse? He wasn't just rich, he was powerful, arrogant, and impossible to read. But she had no choice. Naomi sat on the edge of the couch, her hands pressed between her knees as Alexander paced her small living room. The man looked out of place here, his expensive Italian shoes tapping the dusty cement floor, his presence dominating the silence. You're serious? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You want me to be your maid? Alexander stopped pacing and looked directly at her. Yes. You have no other way to pay me back. Do you? Naomi thought of Ada still asleep in the next room, alive only because of that money. She thought of the unpaid rent, the internship she had hoped would be the start of her future, and the humiliating prospect of jail time. No, she murmured. I don't. Good, he said flatly. You'll report to my house in Ikoyi tomorrow. 6 a.m. sharp. You'll clean, cook, and assist with daily errands. You'll live in the servant quarters. She blinked. Live in? Alexander raised an eyebrow. Is that a problem? Naomi hesitated. She didn't want to leave Ada behind, but she couldn't risk refusing. Not when the alternative was a criminal record, or worse. No, she replied. It's not a problem. He reached into his suit pocket and handed her a sleek black business card. Address. Call when you arrive. He paused at the door, his eyes sweeping over her tiny flat one last time. And Naomi, he said without turning. Don't be late. Then he walked out, the door closing quietly behind him. Later that night. Naomi lay awake on the floor beside Ada's bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. The day had been a blur. She had gone from praying for a miracle to signing her freedom away. She didn't know what kind of man Alexander Coca really was, but something about his eyes unsettled her. Cold. Focused. Dangerous. But under all that, there had been something else too. Pain. Maybe she imagined it. Ada stirred beside her. Naomi? I'm here. I heard someone, earlier. Who was it? Naomi hesitated, then reached for Ada's hand. A mistake, Ada. But I'll fix it. She squeezed her eyes shut. Tomorrow, her new life would begin. Not as an intern. Not as a graduate. But as a maid. To a billionaire who already didn't trust her. Naomi stood before the towering black gates of a mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie. She clutched a small travel bag, the only one she had, and stared up at the high white walls lined with trimmed hedges, security cameras, and blooming hibiscus. Her chest was tight. She hadn't slept all night. Ada had insisted she go, even hugged her weakly before Naomi left. "I don't care what you have to do. Just don't go to prison. Promise me." Naomi promised. But even now, staring at the intimidating mansion, she wondered if jail might have been easier. She pressed the bell. A voice came through the intercom, "Name?" "Naomi Johnson." A short pause. Then the gates buzzed and slowly slid open. The compound was vast. Well manicured. Impossibly quiet. A uniformed security guard led her through the driveway to the main house. It was modern, cold, and intimidating, all marble, glass, and sharp edges. Alexander Coca's world was nothing like hers. She barely had time to take in the interior when a woman's sharp voice pierced the air. "Who's this? Why is she carrying a bag?" Naomi turned. A tall, stunning woman stood on the staircase in a silk robe, one eyebrow arched. Her skin was flawless, her nails long and painted blood red. Her expression? Disdainful. "Stella, the housekeeper," whispered behind Naomi, his fiancée. Before Naomi could explain, Alexander appeared from behind the staircase, dressed in a crisp gray shirt and black trousers, sleeves folded, watch gleaming. "She's the new maid." Stella looked her up and down with narrowed eyes, then let out a dry laugh. "This is a maid?" Alexander ignored her and turned to Naomi. "Follow me." They walked through the corridor in silence. Naomi's footsteps echoed on the polished tiles. The place smelled like money, leather, lavender, and something expensive she couldn't name. Alexander led her into a small sitting room. He turned and spoke directly, not harshly, but without warmth. "Here's how this works. You do your job. You stay out of trouble. You speak when spoken to. My schedule is strict. If you're late or sloppy, you leave, and I report the theft." Naomi nodded quietly. "You'll clean the rooms, assist the cook, and attend to my father when the nurse isn't around. He prefers silence. Don't disturb him unless he calls for you. And," he added, pausing, "don't ever cross Stella. She's territorial." Naomi gave a small nod. "Understood. 1 year. After that, we're even." Naomi looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time. "I'll earn it. I swear." For a split second, something in his gaze softened, a flicker of surprise maybe. But it vanished quickly. "Get changed. Your uniform is in the quarters." He turned and walked out without another word. The quarters. Naomi was shown to the staff area, a narrow corridor beside the kitchen leading to 3 small rooms. Hers had a single bed, a fan, and a wardrobe. Neat, better than she expected, but still nothing like the luxury above. She found the uniform, a plain black dress, modest in length, with a white collar and apron. It fit snugly. She tied her hair into a bun and stepped out, trying not to let her anxiety show. Her first job, clean the upstairs study. Stella was already watching. The war begins. It took only 2 hours for the first insult. "You missed a spot," Stella said, pointing to an imaginary speck of dust on the console table. Naomi had just polished the entire room, twice. "I'm sorry, Ma." Stella leaned in closer. "Tell me, do you enjoy this? Cleaning other people's houses while dreaming you belong?" Naomi swallowed. "I'm just here to do my job." "Right." Stella smiled coldly. "Do it faster then. And be quiet when you're around my fiancé. He's not your friend." Naomi wanted to reply, something sharp, maybe even smart, but she didn't. She simply nodded. Inside, though, she promised herself something. 1 year. I'll survive her for 1 year. Mr. Coca Sr. By evening, Naomi was called into a quiet wing of the mansion, the one most staff avoided. Inside was Alexander's father, an older man with silver hair, sitting in a wheelchair by a large window. He turned slowly as Naomi entered. You're new. Yes, sir. I'm Naomi. He squinted. You're not afraid like the last one. Naomi gave a gentle smile. Should I be? He chuckled. Only if I start throwing things. But I'm too tired for that now. She wheeled him outside to the garden, per his request. The air was cooler there. She offered him tea, which he accepted with a nod. So. What crime did you commit that my son forced you here? Naomi blushed. A misunderstanding. I used money that wasn't mine. He offered this instead of the police. He raised a brow. He made a deal, did he? She nodded. Sounds like him. Always trading feelings for business. They sat in silence. Naomi could feel his gaze on her, assessing her not like a maid, but like something else. Naomi helped serve dinner that night. The dining room was tense. Alexander sat at the head of the long table, Stella beside him, scrolling her phone disinterestedly. Naomi poured him water. Thank you, he said quietly. Stella's eyes flicked upward. She talks to you now. Alexander said nothing. Naomi stepped back quickly, returning to the corner where the staff waited. Stella leaned toward him. You're letting this girl act too familiar. Alexander's voice was calm, clipped. She's doing her job. She's watching you. You don't see it, but I do. Alexander put down his fork, his eyes sharp. She's a maid, Stella. That's all. Don't make this something it's not. Naomi pretended not to hear, but her heart beat louder with every word. Midnight thoughts. That night, Naomi sat in her tiny room, staring at the ceiling fan slowly spinning above. She was exhausted. Her back ached. Her hands were sore. But her spirit? Not broken. She had survived Stella's snide remarks. She had cleaned floors that didn't look dirty, dealt with silence, awkward stares, and 100 unspoken rules. But she had also seen something else. Alexander Coca, the cold billionaire, had said thank you. He didn't have to. And his father? He had smiled when she wheeled him to the garden. Even laughed. Tiny moments. But they mattered. She took out the small note Ada had slipped into her bag. Don't let their world change your heart. Let your heart change theirs. Naomi smiled faintly and placed it under her pillow. 1 day down. 364 to go. A week later, at Coca Mansion. Naomi moved like a shadow through the mansion, always quiet, always on time, always watching. She'd memorized Alexander's schedule. She knew when he wanted his coffee, black, no sugar, when he left for work, 7:45 a.m. sharp, and that he never let anyone touch his suits, he steamed them himself. He was predictable, and yet, somehow unreadable. She kept to herself. Stella, however, did not. You think being quiet makes you special? Don't you have toilets to scrub? Why are you always walking like you own the place? Naomi said nothing. Every insult rolled off her like water on glass, at least on the outside. Cinderella fantasy. What it is, he said coolly, is none of your business. She stared at him. You're falling for her. He didn't respond. And the silence was louder than any answer. The mansion was unusually quiet. Alexander had taken his morning coffee in the garden instead of his office. Naomi watched from a distance, standing by the corridor window, tray in hand. He looked different in the daylight, less guarded, less sharp. Just a man sitting with his thoughts and the breeze. She turned away quickly before he could see her. Behind her, footsteps. Watching him now. Stella's voice dripped with venom. You don't even try to hide it anymore. Naomi blinked, turned slowly. I wasn't watching. Oh, save it. Stella crossed her arms. You think being silent makes you mysterious? No. It makes you manipulative. Naomi kept her voice calm. I only came to deliver the tray. Stay away from him, Stella said. You're just a maid. Naomi nodded. I know. But something in her voice, or maybe her eyes, made Stella clench her jaw and storm off. Later that evening, while preparing dinner in the kitchen, the chef approached Naomi. You're to serve in the main dining room tonight. Alone. Naomi paused. But usually I stay in the back. The chef shrugged. Orders from upstairs. Dinner was awkwardly silent at first. Mr. Coca Sr. wasn't there. Stella scrolled on her phone. Alexander quietly ate. Naomi served carefully, avoiding eye contact. Until Stella set down her fork, too loudly. Alexander, she said sweetly. Don't you think it's inappropriate? Having the maid serve you like this. Alone. Alexander didn't look up. Why? She's doing her job. Is she? Stella smirked. Because she seems a little too eager. Naomi froze. Alexander placed his cutlery down and looked directly at Stella. Stella, enough. The room went silent. You humiliate her at every opportunity. She hasn't done anything to deserve it. Naomi tried to disappear into the wall. Stella sat back. So you're defending her now? No. I'm asking you to act like someone who actually belongs in this house. Stella's mouth dropped slightly, but she said nothing more. She stood, grabbed her clutch, and stormed out. Naomi remained still, unsure whether to stay or run. I'm sorry you had to witness that, Alexander said quietly. She shook her head. You didn't have to defend me. Someone had to. Their eyes met. And this time, neither of them looked away. That night, Naomi stood in the hallway, unable to sleep. As she turned toward the kitchen for water, she saw Alexander heading down the opposite corridor in sweats and a white t-shirt. They nearly bumped into each other. You're up, he said. She nodded. I was just, restless. He hesitated. Then, join me in the study. Naomi blinked. Now. He gave a rare, small smile. You've already cleaned. But on the inside. She was getting tired. That Thursday morning, Naomi entered the kitchen to start preparing breakfast for Alexander's father. Before she could touch the stove, Stella stood in the doorway, arms folded. Today, you're cleaning the garages. All three of them. Naomi blinked. That's usually the driver's job. Stella walked in slowly, her heels clicking like gunshots. Do I look like I care? Ma'am, Mr. Alexander asked me to. I said, she cut in sharply, go. Or are you refusing an order? Naomi looked past her, straight into the security camera in the corner. She said nothing. Just turned, picked up the mop bucket, and walked out. Mr. Coca notices. Later that day, as Naomi wheeled Alexander's father through the garden, he stared at her hands. They're red, he said. From scrubbing? She smiled faintly. I was reassigned today. He narrowed his eyes. Stella. Naomi didn't answer. You don't have to protect her, he said. She's never liked sharing attention. Even with the staff. Naomi hesitated. I'm not trying to get attention. He chuckled. I didn't say you were. But my son is watching you. She blinked. What? He sees how you handle things. He watches more than you think. Naomi looked away, cheeks warming. She wasn't here to impress Alexander, but why did those words stay with her? That evening, dark clouds gathered as Naomi finished folding the laundry on the back terrace. Thunder grumbled, and just as she started pulling in the dry clothes, the skies broke open. The wind tossed a sheet onto the muddy ground. She chased it, slipped, and landed hard on her side. Pain bloomed across her hip. Rain soaked her uniform. Her hair clung to her face. She sat still for a moment, defeated. Then the glass door slid open. Alexander. His eyes swept over her, soaked, on the ground, bruised, silent. He stepped out into the rain without hesitation. You're hurt. I'm fine, she said, but winced trying to stand. He didn't speak. Just reached out, took her arm gently, and helped her up. The touch was soft. Careful. Their eyes met. Rain pattered around them, but time slowed. Why didn't you call for help? He asked. I didn't want to bother anyone. You work here. You're not invisible. She looked down. Sometimes, it feels like I am. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said. You're not. After the storm. He had one of the nurses check her hip and told the chef to let her rest for the evening. Naomi didn't understand. The same man who threatened to arrest her now looked, concerned. She lay on her small bed, replaying his words, "You're not invisible." For the first time since she arrived, she cried, not from pain, or exhaustion, but from being seen. Meanwhile, in the main house, Stella stormed into Alexander's study. You touched her. I saw you. Alexander looked up from his desk. She fell. I helped her. Stella laughed bitterly. You're defending her now. What is this? Across from each other. A warm lamp lit the room softly. You're quiet, he said. Naomi gave a small laugh. I'm always quiet. Not with Ada. I've heard you talk to her on the phone. Naomi's brows lifted. You were listening. I wasn't trying to. He paused. I just noticed you laugh differently when it's her. She nodded slowly. She's all I have. He studied her face for a moment. You've handled this place better than most professionals I've hired. That's not a compliment, she teased gently. It's a survival tactic. He smiled. Still, you do it well. Silence settled, but it wasn't awkward. Finally, he asked the question that had been lingering in his gaze for weeks. Do you regret using the money? Naomi looked down at her hands. If it means Ada is alive. No. Never. She looked up at him again. But I hate that it brought me here like this. Alexander leaned forward slightly. I don't. That made her blink. Maybe you were supposed to end up here. Their eyes locked. Closer now. Softer. But before anything could happen, a knock came at the door. Stella's voice pierced through. Alexander? Are you awake? He closed his eyes. I should go, Naomi whispered. He nodded. Tomorrow's early. She left quietly. But the air between them? It was no longer just duty and silence. It started with small things. Alexander began lingering a few seconds longer when Naomi entered a room. He asked her questions no one else did. Did you eat today? Or, how is Ada? He wasn't soft, but he wasn't cold anymore either. And Naomi? She had stopped pretending she felt nothing. One afternoon, Alexander's father requested Naomi bring him lunch in the garden. While she adjusted his wheelchair, he studied her face. You look tired. She smiled. Only a little. It's not Stella, is it? She hesitated. Not today. Good, he muttered. I'm too old for catfights. Naomi laughed softly. He turned his gaze to her. You know, I've never seen my son look at someone the way he looks at you. Naomi froze. He doesn't look at me, she said gently. Yes, he does, the old man replied. He just doesn't know what it means yet. Stella's final blow. That night, Stella returned from a weekend trip early, unannounced. She found Naomi organizing books in the study. Alone. Quiet. Comfortable. Where's Alexander? She demanded. Naomi stood. I believe he's in his room. You believe? You're very familiar now, aren't you? Naomi said nothing. He's mine, Stella hissed. You think this house will accept you? You're nothing but a charity case. Naomi's chest tightened, but she didn't react. Do you love him? Stella whispered sharply. Naomi blinked. Silence. I thought so, Stella said coldly. You won't survive what's coming next. That evening, Naomi heard her speaking quietly to one of the security guards near the garage. She couldn't hear the full conversation, but she caught fragments. Check her phone records. You know how men can be, easily manipulated. She's not what she seems. Naomi stayed in the shadows, heart pounding. She's planning something. Mr. Coca Sr. warns her. That night, while massaging balm into the old man's knees, Naomi tried to hide her worry. But he noticed everything. She's getting desperate, that one, he said. Naomi blinked. You mean Stella? Don't play coy. You've been looking over your shoulder all day. She smiled faintly. I don't want trouble. Trouble is already in the house. But you are something different. She looked up. I was married for 41 years, he said softly. I know what love looks like when it's blooming, and when it's being denied. He tapped her hand gently. Just don't let fear cheat you out of something honest. A letter under her pillow. That night, Naomi found something folded neatly beneath her pillow. It was a handwritten note. No name, but she knew who it was from. There are 100 reasons I shouldn't feel what I feel for you. But they all lose against one truth, I trust you more than anyone in this house. I see you. I respect you. And I wish I'd met you before the world hardened me. A. She pressed the note to her chest, shut her eyes, and breathed in slowly. No kiss. No confession. But it was happening. They were crossing the line. And they were both beginning to fall. Naomi's steps felt heavier. She had barely slept. Stella's whispered conversation echoed in her ears like a warning bell. She's not what she seems. Check her phone records. Something was coming. And it didn't take long. By noon, Alexander called Naomi to the study. His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. She knew something was wrong. She stepped in, hands clasped. He didn't ask her to sit. Someone came forward with a claim. Naomi's heart stopped. They said you're not just an intern. That you're a fraud. That you used my money intentionally, and that you planned all this. Her throat dried. That's not true. They also submitted a printed record, your school file, and some photos of you in a hotel lobby. She stepped back. What hotel? The same day the money hit your account. A paparazzi photo. You went to meet Ada's uncle, right? She nodded quickly. Yes. I met him to sign a consent form for her treatment. That was the only place we could meet. He didn't speak for a moment. Just stared. She saw it then, doubt. Just a flicker in his eyes. But it was enough to shatter her. "Do you believe them?" she whispered. Alexander didn't answer. And that silence, cut deeper than any word. Naomi returned to her room in tears. How could he think, even for a second, that she was capable of this? That she used him? All the softness from the night before. The quiet looks, the note under her pillow, gone. She locked the door, pressed her back to it, and let herself cry. Meanwhile, Alexander sighed. In his study, Alexander stared at the file again. Everything made sense, and yet none of it did. Naomi was poor, yes. Desperate, yes. But manipulative? Calculated? No. That wasn't the woman who massaged his father's swollen hands. That wasn't the woman who cleaned floors silently, who blushed when he stood too close, who broke down when her friend was dying. He gritted his teeth. Stella. He called his assistant. Pull all the security footage from last week. Hallways. Garage. Outside my study. And give me Stella's call records while you're at it. Stella gets bold. At dinner, Stella took her place at the table like nothing had changed. She wore red, deliberately. Her lipstick matched. And her eyes sparkled like someone who believed she had one. "Where's your little maid?" she asked sweetly. Alexander looked up from his plate. "Don't push me." She tilted her head. "I just think it's time you stop letting strays into your life. And I think," he said coldly, "it's time you left." Stella blinked. "Excuse me?" "Pack your things, Stella. You don't live here anymore." She laughed. "You're throwing me out for her." He stood slowly. "No. I'm throwing you out for me." 2 days later, Alexander knocked on Naomi's door. She didn't answer. He knocked again. "Naomi. Please." She finally opened it, her face swollen from crying, eyes empty. "I should have trusted you," he said simply. "But I needed proof." He handed her a tablet. On it, security footage, Stella speaking to a guard, handing over money, whispering in the dark. She planned it. She faked the report. Naomi's hand trembled as she watched. Why would she do all this? Because I stopped loving her a long time ago. And I think she knew. I'd already started falling for someone else. Naomi's eyes welled again. "You still doubted me." He stepped closer. "And I'll regret that for the rest of my life, unless you let me earn back your trust." She didn't answer. But she didn't close the door, either. The story was supposed to end quietly. Stella was gone. Naomi had returned to her duties, still quiet, still gentle, but something had shifted. She no longer walked like a maid. She walked like someone who had been seen. Chosen. And the house felt it. So did the press. Alexander never liked attention. He preferred strategy over spectacle, action over announcement. But someone, probably Stella, had sent a photo to the tabloids. The headline ran bold across every gossip page in the country. Billionaire Alexander Coca's mystery Maid, inside the mansion romance. Naomi stared at the screen in the kitchen, stunned. Her picture, taken from the balcony days ago, was grainy but unmistakably her. The article speculated about her background, her real intentions. And even hinted that she was pregnant. "What?" she whispered. Her knees buckled. The chef caught her just in time. Alexander's reaction. He was furious. "Track the leak," he ordered his legal team. "And call the editor. Now." When Naomi came into the study later that evening, he stood by the window, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. "I'm sorry," she said softly. He turned. "Don't be. You didn't do this. Still, it's your name. Your company. He stepped closer. You think I care about that more than I care about you? She blinked. He reached for her hand gently, the first time he'd touched her without hesitation. If you want to walk away from all of this, from me, I'll let you. Naomi looked up, surprised. But if you stay, he continued, I'm done hiding how I feel. That night, Naomi called Ada. It's in the news, Ada said, half excited, half worried. The whole country is talking. Is it true? Naomi sighed. Yes. And no. It wasn't supposed to come out this way. Do you love him? There was a long pause. Yes, Naomi whispered. Then don't run. You've been running your whole life. The interview. Alexander's PR team advised him to deny the relationship. Say she was a temporary hire, one consultant said. Make her disappear until it dies down. He stood and said 2 words, she stays. Days later, he called a press conference. The world expected a denial. Instead, he walked onto the stage and said, the woman in that photo is not a secret. She is not a scandal. Her name is Naomi Johnson, and I love her. The room fell silent. Flashbulbs exploded. And Naomi, standing backstage, covered her mouth with her hand as tears filled her eyes. He had chosen her, publicly. Naomi didn't become a celebrity. She didn't want that life. She went back to school part-time, earned her certificate. She still visited Ada every Sunday. She still greeted the house staff like family. But everything changed quietly. Alexander no longer called her the maid. He called her Naomi. Or mine. They weren't married yet, not yet. But the day he kissed her on the front steps of Coca Mansion, with the press outside and her apron still on. That's the moment the world understood. This wasn't charity. This was love. 2 months later, Coca Mansion. Love, once exposed to the world, doesn't return quietly to the shadows. Ever since the press conference, Naomi's life changed, not with fame, but with a kind of pressure she had never known. Some praised her. Others mocked her. Some called it a fairy tale. Others called it a scandal. But what no one could deny, Alexander Coca had chosen her. The proposal no one saw coming. Gee. It was Ada who knew first. Naomi visited her on a sunny Sunday, as always. But this time, Ada had that mischievous glint in her eye. You know he's planning something, Ada said. Naomi blinked. Who? The man who can't stop calling you, even when you're 5 minutes late to lunch. Naomi smiled. He's just protective. Ada leaned forward. Protective men don't visit ring designers. Naomi froze. You knew. Ada grinned. One of the nurses is dating a cousin of the jeweler's assistant. Naomi laughed, then bit her lip. I don't need a ring. I never asked for one. That's exactly why you deserve it, Ada said. The private proposal. Alexander didn't take her to a rooftop. No plain banners. No crowd. No fireworks. Instead, he waited until one quiet evening after dinner. Naomi was barefoot in the garden, watering the roses near the back wall, wearing a simple house dress. He walked up behind her, silent. Just watching. These are blooming, she said without turning. So are we, he said softly. She turned. He dropped to one knee, no speech, no ceremony. Just a ring in his palm, and this. I love you. I trust you. And I want the world to know you're mine. Naomi's breath caught. Tears gathered in her eyes. And she said, yes. But peace doesn't last forever. A few days later, the chairman of one of Alexander's board partners requested a private meeting. It wasn't polite. It was a warning. A housemaid as a wife, the old man sneered. You think shareholders will approve that? Alexander leaned back in his chair. I don't run a monarchy. I run a company. Perception is power, Alexander. You're risking a vote of no confidence. The words echoed. And though Alexander remained outwardly unshaken, the pressure began to build. Naomi feels it too. Whispers started again. 2 investors pulled out of a side deal. One luxury magazine pulled his face from their front page. Naomi noticed him staying later at the office. Avoiding dinners. One evening, she confronted him. You're pulling away. He didn't lie. The board is threatening to use the engagement as a reason to question my leadership. She blinked. So I'm a liability now? No, he said firmly. They are. But they still have influence, she whispered. And I don't. He reached for her hand. Naomi. I will not let anyone come between us. But she saw it in his eyes. He was torn. The next week, Naomi took off the engagement ring. She didn't return it. She placed it inside a velvet box, and left it on Alexander's desk. With a note. Love is not supposed to come at the cost of your purpose. But mine is not to be your shame either. I love you. But I will not be hidden again. Naomi. Alexander read it. And for the first time in years, the billionaire with power, wealth, and pride, broke down. Naomi had moved out of the master wing. She didn't leave the mansion, Alexander wouldn't let her. But she kept her distance. She resumed quiet duties, avoided long eye contact, and did everything to make herself invisible again. But Alexander saw her everywhere. In the soft folds of his unused duvet. In the kitchen where she used to hum. In the silence where laughter once lived. And every night, he looked at the velvet ring box on his desk. Untouched. Unopened. Waiting. Mr. Coca Sr. speaks up. The old man had had enough. One morning over tea, he said plainly. If you lose her because of a boardroom full of cowards, then you don't deserve her. Alexander stared down at his untouched cup. They're pushing for a no-confidence vote. Let them. The elder's voice was sharp. You'll survive without their approval. But you won't survive without your heart. She deserves more than scandal. She deserves a man who fights for her. That was it. Alexander stood up. And went to war for love. 2 days later, during Coca Industries' annual shareholders summit, Alexander took the stage. The board expected him to say something safe, something polished. Instead, he said. A man is defined not by his money, but by what he values when money is no longer enough. He paused, looking at every face in the room. I've been called a visionary. A leader. A CEO. But the most courageous thing I've ever done, was fall in love with a woman who had nothing, and still gave me everything. Murmurs rippled. He continued. If that makes me unfit to lead, then vote me out. But I won't lead a company that requires me to abandon the only honest part of my life. The room was silent. One clap started. Then another. And then, applause. The vote never happened. Naomi's return to the garden. That night, Naomi watered the roses again. Same place. Same time. Same quiet. But this time, Alexander didn't walk up behind her. She turned. And found him kneeling. Again. You left the ring, he said softly. But I never stopped holding on to it. She swallowed hard. I didn't want to cost you everything. You are everything. He held up the box. No more hiding. No more shame. No more asking permission to love you. Naomi didn't cry this time. She smiled. Then put it on my finger, Alexander. It wasn't grand. It wasn't on a magazine cover. It was in the garden, barefoot again, with Ada by Naomi's side and Mr. Coca Sr. holding the ring. The staff cried. The press stayed away. And when Alexander kissed her in front of everyone who once doubted her, she was no longer just a maid. She was his wife. Till the next story, thank you.